Hi, I'm Arthur, and today I'm gonna kinda shake up the established, incredibly loose format. For those who don't know, this is part 10 of a series I'm doing on all 20 legions of Space Marines. Normally, I discuss the lore, and a little bit of the tabletop, and what you could expect aesthetically from any of the legions. But this time, I'm going to do that, but also end off with a bit of a different point. And today's topic, since we are discussing the 10th Legion, we're discussing the Iron Hands. A legion that has probably the exact opposite set of problems that the White Scars do in regards to the fan base. Who are the Iron Hands? Bit of a brief overview of them is interesting. Their Primarch, Ferrus Manus, a man so ugly, his nickname was the fucking Gorgon to his friends, of which there weren't many. This guy is kinda at the bottom of the totem pole for me in terms of Primarchs. Maybe not the complete bottom, but I just don't vibe with his brand of militaristic Darwinism. It's not worse than Perturabo, but if the best thing I can say about a Primarch's personality is it's not much worse than fucking Perturabo, then it's probably not great at base. So needless to say, he believes in the best and success. The strong should be the only ones to exist. Well, that mentality, it led to a bit of a fucky-wucky with the whole Legion. But to cover the broad strokes, he was sent to a planet named Medusa, where he learned the wrong lessons from surviving in harsh environments. As the saying goes, hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times. For him, it was more like, strong men make weak men afraid for their fucking lives. Yeah. He believed in literal self-destructive levels of self-improvement, which translated to him attacking the shit out of the Emperor in a bloody conflict when Emps showed up to get his kid from daycare. The other important aspect of him is he once struggled with a Necron Satan shard, and no, I will not pronounce it differently, strangling the thing in a deep pool of molten magma in the base of a volcano, which inevitably covered his hands in the weird self-regenerating metal that Necrons are made out of, known as necrodermis, which, was actually incredibly beneficial for him in the long run. Inevitably, when the Emperor brought him back into the fold of the Imperium, it led to him taking control of his legion, and him taking control of his legion was odd at first, because he basically recommended them to give up their culture and take the Medusan culture, having an incredibly nepotistic slant towards promoting generals born from Medusa rather than the originals born from Terra, regardless of how good they were in battle. Which, as you can probably guess, led to some pretty weird consequences. I know I feel like I'm speedrunning this shit more than usual. I have a major point to make at the end, and as you all could probably figure out, I'm known to be a bit long-winded, so please be patient. Two more important points to make. One, Ferrus Manus had a bit of a twink friend, whom kinda rocked the beauty and the beast trope pretty hard, which was, as you could probably guess, Fulgrim. They had the manliest competition ever to see who had the biggest cock. They hosted a smithing competition to see who could forge the best weapon in like a set period of time. They toiled away for hours upon hours, and after seeing the other person's weapon, they both looked at each other and admitted at the same time that the other person's weapon was significantly better. Both of them finding that very funny and weirdly endearing of the other, they gave the weapon that they had smithed to the other person as a show of friendship. I can't tell if that's incredibly straight or incredibly gay. The fanbase can't decide either, TBH. I mean, with some art depicting them just being bros, just chilling, maybe going fishing, shit's awesome. And other pieces of fan art describe Ferrus as the top. Regardless of their brotherly love, it didn't exactly end well, methinks. Considering Ferrus ended up being the first Primarchs to die during the Horus Heresy by getting his head chopped off by Fulgrim. And yes, the memes are a little mid, but I digress. To kind of get back to the Iron Hands after covering the first point involving Ferrus's relationship with Fulgrim and Ferrus's death at the hands of him, when Ferrus was alive, he would press his legion to be stronger and stronger. They inevitably adopted this idea that the flesh is weak and cold hard steel is better. I mean, Ferris did have iron Oh, so that's why they're called the Iron Hands. Because he has iron hands. That's so fucking stupid. Anyway, they would ceremonially remove the left hand and replace it with a augmetic, cybernetic one. This eventually turned into them venerating machines above people, thinking that people are gross and machines are just always going to be better overall because they're uncorruptible, which is totally fucking incorrect. But I digress again. With the veterans of the chapter eventually replacing more and more parts of their body with robotic replacements, some chapter ancients being made of just all robotic components and maybe just a brain and a couple important organs. Ferris realizing that this was killing his legion's spirit, meaning they would be little more than war machines in the most literal of meanings, decided that once things kind of calmed down with, Horus doing his thing, he would have a nice sit down with the legion and say, hey, maybe having meaty bits is kind of cool. He was even considering removing the necrodermis from his hands to make his point a little bit more clear. Unfortunately, as we've discussed before, his barber took a little bit too much off the top, and thus the techno shit continued to go rampant. An interesting fact is that in the 40k era, they are so obsessed with logical combat and dogmatically lopping off their own fleshy bits that the thing most Space Marines fear, becoming a dreadnought, is something they honestly look forward to. They wish to be a complete robot. This obsession with adding more machinery to a person's body being so severe that it led to chaos corruption to eke its way into the chapter. See their tendencies causing a weird uprising of Slaneshi demons and cultists at one point, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll get into that, I swear. I have one last thing I want to say to make my point clear. This point, other than the lore aspects and Ferris's relationship with them slowly losing their humanity, is that on the tabletop, the Iron Hands are something that comes up often, at least throughout the 8th and 9th editions of 40k. Why? Because Iron Hands, by nature of who they are, run the coolest shit on the board, and buff the best things that would be good in most competitive metas. Heavy machinery, tanks, dreadnoughts, and big guns. So whenever a minor Space Marine buff happens, you can bet your ass that you're gonna see Iron Hands fucking clear at most tournaments. So, if you've been paying attention to, tournaments in the last little while, every Space Marine list that's been winning, outside of if you count Grey Knights, would be Iron Hands, just because they buff tanks and specifically heavy weapons. And their aesthetics on the tabletop is cool as shit. They're very easy to paint, pure black, kinda hard to fuck up with metal bits. That's 2 paints. You don't need to do much more. If you really want to get fancy with it, just do the meme of coating the entire miniature in null oil and you have a good day. And you're pretty much on point. It's the opposite of why white scars aren't played, where painting white is always just going to be fucking awful. With all that said, I mentioned that the white scars and the Iron Hands have very opposite issues. So what are they? Well, for one, the paint schemes, like I mentioned, and 2, the lore. So here's where we're going to get into my point of this video to kind of explain the Iron Hands to you as someone who might not know anything about them. Universally, not a lot of people know the lore about the White Scars, and when they find out about it, it usually leads to reactions akin to, huh, that's really fucking cool, because Jagatai Khan is kind of chill, and the majority of the White Scars in the faction are just really well-written characters. The Iron Hands, their lore is almost skin deep. Mind the pun, of course. You can immediately find out everything you need to know about their personalities just by looking at them. Obsessed with machines and kind of boring in personality, which sucks because I read some novels about their current sort of chapter master, Carden Stronos, and he seems kind of cool. He believes that shutting off emotions is bad for the chapter and weakens them, which is what Ferris wanted. Characters like that are so few and far between. I went to a bunch of friends and was like, so where do I get good Iron Hands lore? What novels are the best to start with? And the usual response I got is something akin to, there are 2 short stories you could read and the Primarch novel, and them usually saying, I don't know, I wish there was more. Which sucks! Because I think their gimmick as a chapter is rife with possibility to just be better. I think they have sown the seeds to be very interesting in terms of the lore. In the Primarch book, there are a few scenes of an Iron Hands legionary sort of telepathically communicate with the machine spirit of his plane and learn how it works better. That premise alone is really cool, but I find that no one wants to write for them, or at least there's just not enough people writing for them. There's not many books that I can find. I usually use Audible to do my research, but as I was looking for things to look up, it was like maybe 2 or 3 short 30-minute audio dramas in the Primarch book, and that was about it. I know it's not exactly the perspective most people could relate to, a cold and calculating machine-based killer, but follow me on this. What if, not so much as a retcon, but the Primaris reinforcements didn't have such a detached sense of morality and emotion, and we just focused on one individual whom believed that the ghost inside the machine itself is more important than the machine. The iron within means nothing in comparison to the iron without. We just became Iron Warriors. But you see where I'm going with this. What if they decided to make an Iron Hands initiate that was an overly emotional sort, whom has to balance this cold, ruthless aggression of his chapter with his own hot temper and his own flood of emotions? It could lead to some good fiction, or him dying horribly and demoralizing the aspects of the chapter whom don't want to believe that they are just cold, uncaring robots. Which is likely a small faction of them, but fuck me, it's something. There are so many things you could do with this. Their aesthetic is so fucking cool. Black, silver, and white is just such a strong color palette that pops on a green battlefield, especially with like dusty matte colors if you highlight with like a nice gray. So it could easily be done. Now, am I saying I could write a better story than the writers at the Black Library? Yes, I am in fact saying that because the delusions of grandeur have overtaken my base sense of self, and the idea of someone else being better than me at anything causes my brain to buzz and vibrate like I just got jolted by a taser gun stabbed directly into the back of my neck. Endpoint is the Iron Hands are masters of tanks, dreadnoughts, and fucking destroying things. They do not save people, because if someone needs saving because they couldn't fight the threat off themselves, then they don't deserve to live. If you think any of that is cool, invest in Iron Hands and just get 3 Redemptors. It's time for me to say a very cute thesis statement about how I feel as a whole. I personally think that narratively and in the lore, they are wasted. I think they deserve better in terms of novels and writing, and I just hope that one day someone does give them the respect that they have. Are they one of my favorite legions? Probably not. But I see the building blocks to make a very interesting set of stories that I don't think many people think about tapping into. The running joke that I've seen with many people who cover lore is, oh, there's nothing about the Iron Hands, and I think that's a shame. But what do you think? Do you think they should get more books? Do you think they are just hella boring, and you're mad I like them more than Blood Angels? Let me know in the comments. I want to know your opinion and possibly fight you. Don't forget to also like and subscribe, as I have a weird surprise coming up soon. And for now, I just want to say, a fucking Slaanesh demon? The Sapphire Prince is a cool name, but an entire unfeeling and uncaring legion of people being corrupted by Slaanesh demons. That's like if a Corrin demon especially wanted to corrupt a faction of bloodless robots. I'm sure you could probably do something with it, but like, dude, they're probably removed their dicks at step 1. What can you even do?